Welcome to your Time Management Revolution. This is Time Management Fixer Helene Segura. In today's episode, I'll be sharing a previously recorded interview during which we're discussing time management and mind management. Enjoy!
Thank you for tuning in for this Unity Partner Program. Unity Online Radio partners with spiritual leaders from organizations whose mission and messages complement Unity's. We are pleased to bring you this program on Unity Online Radio, the voice of an awakening world.
Welcome to Affirmative Prayer, Activating the Power of Yes, with Reverend Beverly Molander from Atlanta, a focused minister through the Centers for Spiritual Living. It's time to say yes to a bigger idea of yourself and what you can do. How many ways can you activate the power of yes? Take notes and get ready to have your heart and mind open to the possibility of today. And now, your host, Beverly Molander.
Hello and welcome to Affirmative Prayer, Activating the Power of Yes. I'm Beverly Molander, and as a focused minister with Centers for Spiritual Living, I know that we can change our thinking and change our lives. And what we think, say, and do can help activate the power of yes. Now today we're activating the power of yes by saying yes to changing our thinking and changing our lives about managing our time and being organized. Helene Segura, I'm going to say it the correct way, Segura. Helene is a productivity consultant and time management fixer. As the inefficiency assassin, Helene has been the featured productivity expert in over 100 media interviews, including Women's Day Magazine, Money Magazine, Fox, CBS, ABC, and NBC affiliates. And she has coached hundreds of clients to productivity success by, now I love this, applying neuroscience and behavioral modification techniques to wipe out destructive time-wasting habits. Welcome to Affirmative Prayer, Activating the Power of Yes, Helene.
Thank you, Beverly. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, now this is really something where you are combining something like neuroscience and behavior modification to something that most of us just look at as basic messing up, screwing up, can't do it, not organized, confused, discombobulated, and you're tying it into neuroscience and behavior modification. So tell us how that relates to the way we feel and act every day.
Well, I'm a firm believer that time management is all about mind management because our brains decide what we're going to do with our time, and our brains decide how we're going to react to people when they ask for some kind of commitment that's going to take our time. So because our brains are involved with controlling time, that's where the neuroscience and behavior management come in, because it's pretty much useless to go against the ways that the human brain works. So why not figure out how the brain works best, and then based on our personality, build up our time management skills around that.
I love that. So it's not trying to do something over, it's trying to use what you already have.
Exactly, in the most efficient way possible, so that way you have more time for fun instead of spending that time on worrying or feeling frazzled.
Well, define inefficiency, because I'm thinking that it's just a mess in the mind, a mess in the home, a mess in the workplace, all of that kind of stuff. So is that about right? And how can we change our mind about behavior that would be different from that?
I would say that what you just listed, the messes of the mind and the messes of our physical area, those are the results of being inefficient. If you look at Webster's dictionary, it defines the word efficient as, quote, capable of producing the desired results without wasting materials, time, or energy.
Ooh.
So when we are inefficient, we are doing the exact opposite. We are not producing the results that we want, and we're doing it because we are wasting time, materials, or energy. So that's why if we can be very cognizant and present about everything that we do during the day, we will be better planners of our time and also better decision makers about how we want to use our time for the rest of the day.
Okay, so you also have talked about personality types being different. I know some people, like my best girlfriend, I kid her, when she is discombobulated about something, she gets out a toothbrush and cleans the walls and cleans the crevices in the corners. That's not how I handle chaos. So tell us, what are the different kinds of types of people, and how can we relate to what you're talking about?
Well, I have run across a lot of folks who are what I call nurturers. And nurturers are your friends who you can always go to for help because they drop everything for you. They drop everything for everybody else in the world, and because they do that, they don't take the time for themselves and take care of themselves. And I find that nurturers have the toughest time with time management because of that, because they put everybody else first besides themselves. I also find that worriers have a tough time with time management because their minds are so full of, oh my gosh, what if this happens and what if that happens? And so their brains are swirling and they can't think clearly about what they need to do. Or they might worry because they don't have a system in place for how to do things, for getting reminders, and so they constantly worry about, oh my goodness, what if I forget? So I find that nurturers and worriers have the toughest times with time management. But if they're like your friend who will grab that toothbrush and start scrubbing, that's actually a great form of productive procrastination. So if you don't want to do something or face something that's right in front of you, you can turn to a different task that will get something done. I don't know about scrubbing the tile down, so that every single centimeter of grout is clean, but you can still focus on something else that will still move you forward if you don't want to face a task that's in front of you.
Okay, so when we're going through this, and we all know how we can procrastinate, what do you think? I was thinking, reading your book, that to me, procrastination has so much to do with being inefficient, because at the last minute you're thinking, where's the microphone? Do I have a pen? I need a notebook. Do I have enough books? All those kinds of things. So what do you think? Is that like number one as far as you're concerned?
I would say procrastination is one of the biggest time leaks in the day. There are various time leaks, which we can get into in a little while. That's where time disappears without you even realizing it, because it's not like we'll procrastinate for 3 hours at a time and say, oh, wow, I just lost 3 hours. We usually procrastinate for 5 minutes here or 10 minutes there, and then it ends up adding up to the 3 hours, but you don't realize it because it just leaked out in little bits and pieces. And psychologists tell us that procrastination is the act of wanting to feel better now. So for adults, procrastination is basically our version of a 3-year-old's tantrum. When a 3-year-old says, I don't want to.
Yeah.
And so we procrastinate when we are afraid of not completing something perfectly. It's not going to turn out right, or we're not sure about what to do, or we just plain old don't want to do something. And you're exactly right. That's where we do lose so much time in the day. It's through that procrastination.
Okay, so every time you open your mouth, I am thinking about myself, Helene.
Oh, no. Okay, let's diagnose you, Beverly. Let's get you cured.
Usually I think about my listeners, but this is a selfish show right here. I'm thinking, is procrastination always a bad thing? I have a pretty good sized commission painting that I have kind of an end time when it's due, but I haven't really put a lot of paint to the canvas yet. I've kind of walked around and stalked it and tried different things and thought it through. So it's not like I'm not doing something. I'm just not doing something that will get me to the end result. Would you call that procrastination, or would you give me a little room here, wiggle room?
Sure. Actually, I don't think it's procrastination because you are going through various steps that will get you to the finished painting. You're just not maybe working at the speed you would like to. Procrastination becomes detrimental when we wait until the last minute on everything. That's when it starts to hurt us, because emotionally we feel overwhelmed because now we're running around like a chicken with our head cut off to get everything done. And then physically, when we get into that mode to finish something at the last minute, we feel like we're getting a high from this drive. Oh, yes, I'm really motivated now. But that high is actually coming from cortisol. That's a chemical that our brain releases when we're going into stress mode, and cortisol is what causes high blood pressure over a long period of time. It causes cognitive malfunctions. It causes stress eating and weight gain. So if you procrastinate a lot every single day, that's eventually what happens. So in your case with the painting, I don't think you're procrastinating. You know when the deadline is, and it's not like you've put it off to the side and you're just waiting until the last day that the painting is due, and then you're going to slap something on the canvas. You're going through all of those different steps. You're thinking about it. You're planning. Eventually you'll put some little dabs of paint on there and just keep working at it. So I don't think you're procrastinating. You're safe. You're fine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad we talked ahead of time so you could, no, just kidding. So you could be my friend during the show. Okay. Yes. So I know you deal a lot with people in the workforce, in a business environment, and on the personal home front, are the people who are the most inefficient in the workplace the same way at home, or does it just kick in as soon as you walk through the door at work?
Everybody is completely different. Some people who are hyper-organized at work are what they would call a hot mess at home. Nothing's together. Other people are super organized at home, and they're the exact opposite at work. Some people are discombobulated in both parts of their life. So it's not like that there's this one set pattern. But what is the common thread with all of them is that they have trouble with the planning piece of planning out how they want to use their time. And then they also have problems with the communication piece, communicating to others how they would like to use their time and how can others possibly help them so they can all get everything done together.
Are you talking about on the home front or the work front?
Both. It's really important to have planning in both of those parts of your life and to also have a team. A lot of times when somebody is organized at work but not at home, it's because they think, okay, I've got my schedule at work, I know exactly what I need to do, and these are all the things that I need to get done. And when they get home, they don't want to do any thinking because they're tired, and because they don't plan at home like they do at work, then nothing gets done at home either. So the planning piece is critical in both parts of life, as well as the communication. So at home, whoever is a part of your household should be a part of taking care of the household and planning with you about what needs to get done and when, who needs a ride to which practice, and where do you need to get picked up. Everybody should be a part of that, just like at work. If you are working in a department or you're working with a team, it's really critical that everybody understands what they're responsible for and what the deadlines are and What information do you need from other people, so that way you are not placing some last-minute crisis that you brought on yourself because you're disorganized, and then you have to go put that crisis on a coworker because now you're asking them for help at the last minute. That planning and the communication are critical in both parts of our lives.
Okay, so let's go to the home front here.
Okay.
As you were describing all the busyness that needs to be done around running a family, how do families get together, and how does that message go out about who picks up whom and who's going to fix supper and when so-and-so's coming home from practice? Mm-hmm. How does that how does everybody get together and hear the same thing?
The first thing that needs to happen is a mom and or dad who's ever in charge of the household and the two adults together or the one adult on your own, you want to come up with what are the different tasks around the house that need to get done? What are the different activities that the kids or other adults participate in that we need to worry about making sure that everybody gets there on time? And you have that in front of you. And I know it sounds crazy to write something out when you want to talk to your family, but what happens is when we get into those situations and we either get overjoyed or we get upset with somebody, everything in our brains tends to go out the window and we forget what we wanted to talk about or we forget all the things that we wanted to say. So you have that list in front of you, and then you let the family know that you would like to have a chat. And the best time to do this is after dinner, because that's when our bellies are full and we're happy. When we normally have these conversations, it's usually not a conversation. It's, I'll put myself there. So it's me walking in saying, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? Why can't you do this for me?
Barking
Why don't you ever?
Yes,
and then, everybody's just upset. So instead, you gather your thoughts ahead of time and you have this family meeting when everybody is calm and happy, and you're much more likely to get buy-in when you're asking for help instead of telling everybody what to do.
Okay, so I'm beginning to picture this where if everybody sees the head person writing things down, then there's an opportunity for them to feel pleased when they've accomplished something or know that they're going to be accountable for it. So it's already developing a sense of order in my head, and maybe everybody else in the family. So that makes sense to me. But I know you've got some other things that can work in the household or in the workplace. And so we're going on a break right now. And what I want to do when we get back is talk about, I know you have a magic 5 things that somebody can do to stop chaos, stop that inefficiency, not remembering what to do, procrastinating and all that kind of stuff. So when we get back, we'll be talking with Helene about what we can do to improve efficiency in our lives. We'll be back after this.
Bring it on.
Unity Online Radio brings you inspiring programs on a variety of spiritual topics. Giving to the network is now easier than ever. Simply text Unity Radio to 72727 from your smartphone. You can make a one-time or recurring donation. Your gifts help us offer enriching spiritual programs that reach listeners around the world. Text Unity Radio to 72727. Thank you for your support.
Are you in a state of change, a period of transition? Perhaps you simply don't know which way to turn, or you want guidance on taking that next step in your personal or professional life. You can activate the power of yes with Reverend Beverly Molander. As a new thought minister and next step counselor, she knows how to listen to where you are and help you get to where you want to be. With 20 plus years of experience, she offers spiritual counseling and affirmative prayer next step counseling for your personal or professional life, as well as resume writing and editing. To learn more about Beverly's counseling services, visit BeverlyMolander.net. That's Beverly, MOLANDER.net.
What if you could experience vibrant health, help heal the planet, and be a great friend to God's animal kingdom through simple choices you make at breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Authors Victoria and Adair Moran say you can do this easily, affordably, and deliciously in their new book, Main Street Vegan. Everything you need to know to eat healthfully and live compassionately in a real world. Loaded with practical tips, straightforward information, and fabulous recipes, Main Street Vegan will help you on your journey toward a plant-based diet. The perks include more energy, an easy way to keep your weight where you want it, feeling younger as you grow older, and maybe even a boost to your spiritual life. Purchase Main Street Vegan from BN.com, Amazon.com, or your favorite bookseller.
You're listening to Affirmative Prayer, Activating the Power of Yes, with Reverend Beverly Molander. If you want to communicate with Beverly, friend her on Facebook at Beverly Molander, Molander. Like her page on Affirmative Prayer, or go to her website at beverlymolander.net. Now, back to Affirmative Prayer, Activating the Power of Yes.
Hello there, welcome back, and I'm talking with Helene Segura, the inefficiency assassin, time management tactics for working smarter, not longer. And I love that. When we're talking about working, we want to have it be efficient and get it done, not have it take over our lives. So I think we've got some good things going here. Just being able to picture that possibility in our lives, Helene. And I was saying earlier, what are the 5 things that someone can do to stop that chaos, whether they're in the workplace or at home?
The first thing you'll want to do is decide on what your top 3 personal priorities and work priorities are. Because so many times, if somebody asks us, what are your priorities, we know what they are, but they're in our subconscious the rest of the time until somebody asks us that. So we want them not only in the forefront of our brain, but also posted, and this is why. Whenever we have to make a decision about our time, we need to look at those priorities lists and ask ourselves, is what I'm about to commit to going to support my personal priorities or my work priorities? And that helps us figure out how to use time in the day. So number 1, you want to figure out and post your priorities. Number 2, you want to choose measurable targets for your priorities. So let's say, for example, that one of your priorities is your children. You want to spend more time with them in the evenings. Well, that's great that you want to spend more time, but how do you measure the word more? You want to have a number, something that's measurable there, such as I'd like to spend at least 90 uninterrupted minutes with my kids each night. So that way you're not wondering how close or how far you are away from achieving this goal. You know it's 90 minutes or 45 minutes. How close are you? And that helps us stay motivated, because too many times, and ladies, we're especially guilty of this, we focus on what we didn't do instead of what we did do. So that's why you want something measurable so you know how close you are. And I think once you start measuring what you're doing, you're going to be a lot happier about how you perform, because you'll start realizing how much you really get done. And then third, you want to plan at the end of each day for the next day. So stop at the end of your day. If you're planning for work, you would stop about the last 15 to 30 minutes of your workday and decide, what are the top 3 most important tasks I need to get done the next day. So that way, no matter what happens to you the next day, if you need to put out fires or if a great opportunity lands in your lap, you can get refocused back on those top 3 things if you get interrupted during the day. And then fourth, you want to schedule time to work on those top 3 things on your calendar. And the reason why we want to do that is because we usually use a long to-do list with 20 million things on there, And it's not humanly possible to finish all 20 million of those things in one day, so we set ourselves up for failure, and we end up getting down because we don't have everything crossed off. That's why you want to choose just those top 3 and schedule those in on your calendar to have time to get them done. And then number 5, you want to reflect at the end of each day on what you did get done, because that helps you stay positive. Yes, you will eventually reflect on the things you didn't get done and scoot those to the next day or the day after, but it's all about being positive and focusing on the positive, because that gives you the motivation to keep going. So those are the top 5 things that you can do to stop chaos.
Okay, so let's go back to number 1, where you talk about the top 3 personal priorities and the top 3 work priorities. I know that there are some people who might think, okay, a work priority is get the Excel database caught up. But they have about 6 months worth of information that needs to be put into the Excel database. So get that caught up sounds like a momentous task that would take a month, not just part of a day. So give us some, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Give us some examples of the bites we can take each day.
Now we're moving into what's called project management. Most people don't realize that the tasks they need to complete will be successful if they implement project management. So usually when we hear project management, we think of a project manager at work, and because we don't have that job title, we don't do project management. But really, if we apply those same principles that project managers do, that's how we can take this seemingly huge project and break it down into those small pieces. So for the Excel database that you're talking about, you would look at what is the end date that I need to turn in this updated Excel database. And that's going to be your final line if we're working on a sheet of paper or a list. And then above that, you need to ask yourself, before I can turn that in, I need to proofread it and make sure that I have finished all of the steps. So you would schedule that in as a due date maybe 2 days before the final is due. And you work your way backwards through the steps that would need to be completed. In order for you to proofread, you would have to make sure that you have all of the final data in there. Well, what's the final data? I need to have this piece of information from this person. I need to have that piece of information from that person. So you work your way backwards to find out what are all those baby steps that need to be taken, and what information do I need from people by which date? So that way I can say, hey, Sally, I'm going to need your spreadsheets from January and March. I'll need those by April 15th, so that way I have time to put this project together. And hey, Joe, I am going to need your database information from last December through February, and I'll need that by April 15th, so that way I can put this together. So you let the different people who are involved know, and you schedule your work time out on your calendar, so that way you're not trying to throw this together at the last minute because, oh my gosh, this is due. You work on it little by little throughout that project timeline. Just like you with your painting, you're not working on it all at once at the last minute. You're working on these baby steps a little bit each day along the way, so that eventually the project is done without you having to rush at the last minute.
Okay, all right. So I'm thinking about planning ahead and scheduling time. What do you mean by scheduling time? Do you actually mean on a timeline, say at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning I'm going to do this? And what if something interferes with that?
So let's say that you block off from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. to work on a portion of your painting, whatever step that you're in. And this is an appointment that you've made with yourself. Now, if something comes up where it's a crisis, something bad has happened, or something awesome has happened, and you need to go deal with whatever it is, you know that you had an hour blocked off for this project. And because you're going to choose to not use that hour to work on that project, you now need to choose when you're going to slide your hour to. So are you going to slide that hour down in the afternoon and you're going to work on it then? Are you going to slide it over to the next day or 2 days from now and maybe work on the painting for 2 hours in the day instead of just one? So by understanding how much time you wanted to devote to a task, you can start flip-flopping those time blocks around. So when we schedule something out for the day, unless it's an appointment with another person, if it's just scheduling with ourselves, we can flip-flop those time blocks as necessary. But the key is we understand how much time we were going to devote to it so we know where we need to make up time elsewhere.
Well, and it's just like if you schedule a meeting with someone else, maybe you have to postpone that meeting that was going to be 10 to 11. But postponing doesn't mean that it gets wiped off of your calendar and you never do it again. So
exactly.
It's kind of like taking yourself seriously, it sounds like,
right.
So that you honor the time that you have to spend with yourself in getting these things done.
Exactly. Some people look at it as they are making an appointment with their best friend because their best friend is the self. So just like they would make an appointment with a doctor or make an appointment with a colleague, they make various appointments with themselves. And they can choose to keep those appointments or they can choose to reschedule. And just like you said, if they want to choose to reschedule, they still need to put it elsewhere on the calendar. It's not dropping completely off.
Okay, so we're kind of getting our mind in sync with ourselves, and already with your description of how we can do that, my mind is starting to slow down, especially with the idea of starting in the evening and just saying, okay, I'm getting ready to go to bed. What do I need to accomplish tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Oh, let's remember this, and that has really helped me to get myself organized so nothing surprises me.
Right.
Or like an example about that you gave in the book about someone missing an appointment. He'd really worked hard to get an appointment with this woman who was just impossible to reach. And she finally agreed to meet with him. And he did not check his calendar. He just got involved with emails at the beginning of the day and got involved in this project that wasn't even that important or didn't have a time frame linked to it and totally forgot about that appointment. So thinking ahead about what's coming up makes a lot of sense to me. Now, also thinking about this day and age, we've got emails, we've got calendars in our database, we've got calendars on the wall, text, tweets, files, records, notes, notepads, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of these things like that. How in the heck do we keep track of everything?
Well, you know, when you list it off like that, I could already feel my brain starting to heat up and go into overdrive. That little mouse running on the wheel was spinning and running faster. And I bet that's how a lot of other people feel, too, when they start thinking about, oh, my gosh, all this stuff we need to keep track of. But that's when you pause, you take a deep breath, you step back, and you say, okay, how can we break this down into smaller bite-sized pieces so it doesn't seem so overwhelming? From the list that you gave, if I started to categorize that, I'd say, well, email and text, those are electronic. Those are communication pieces, so I can put those together and start managing those. You mentioned files and records and notes, and those are more in paper format, so that tells me I need to take care of the paper part of my day. So when you compartmentalize or categorize all these different tasks that you have going on, it becomes easier to manage. You mentioned Facebook, LinkedIn, tweets. All of those would fall under social media, and there are some apps that you can use to manage your social media. So I think the first step is categorizing all these different tasks that you have going on, so that way your brain isn't so scattered and overwhelmed. It realizes, oh, yes, okay, it falls into this category and that category, and I'll make time to work on those. I'll schedule it on my calendar.
I love that. Any suggestions? I think one of the best things I discovered I could do with email, and when I went to Gmail, was that I could assign different kinds of emails to either social, promotion, or spam, and that cut down on a lot of what I see immediately when I'm checking in the morning.
Exactly. And a step further is, if you wanted to, you can actually establish a separate email address for the folks who you don't know as well. And I'll give you an example. If you shop online, if you go to a networking meeting and you're just meeting folks for the first time, there are a lot of people there who just want to gather your information and put you on a list, those would be the kind of folks who you would give a generic email to that you just go into once in a while and check. And you could have a separate email address for all of your close contacts. So you know that when you're checking that close contact email address, chances are you know that person quite well and they need something, so it'll be more important. And then later on in the day, you can go into that generic email address and check things from people who are not in that contact email yet. But the way you have it set up is a great way to go if you have that single email address. So it's already put into different categories so you know which tab to click on to read from.
Okay, now we've been talking about the family, what to do with a family at home, what to do in the workplace. Now, what do we do with all these people who are retiring after, 30 years of going to work every day and coming home and having those stresses of the workplace and the family life? Now, both of those stresses are gone or they look different. Are retirees kind of free and clear of having to get themselves organized?
Actually, I get quite a few calls from retirees because their stress levels have gone up because they're not getting the important things done because they're having so much fun playing. Every day is a Saturday when you're retired. It's awesome. But because of that, they're falling behind on bill paying or they have missed appointments because they weren't paying attention. So we have to go back to the successes that they had in the business world or in their personal lives back when they were working and when they were busier, and we look at the routines they used to have in place, and we go back to that on a scaled level. So in other words, if you're retired, you don't have to structure your day from 8 to 5, but you might want to have some structure from, say, 9 in the morning to 11 in the morning to get your important tasks done, and then you can go golfing or go to the bowling alley or go do whatever you'd like to do. But there needs to be some kind of structure and some kind of plan so that the important things do get finished.
And don't fall by the wayside.
Yes.
Don't get forgotten about. Yes. Now, are there any, we were talking about like email programs and things like that. Do you have any suggestions for any kinds of files or boxes of things or different ways to use the computer that would help us get organized?
Well, if we're talking about email, I usually don't refer anybody to apps or systems first. I refer them to a process of how to work through email. One of the biggest interruptions I find during the day, one of the biggest time leaks besides procrastination, is self-interruptions from notifications. Our phones or our devices, our tablets, our laptops, they ring or whistle or vibrate at us every time an email notification comes in, and that interrupts our brains. Neuroscience tells us that it takes an average of 60 seconds to refocus back on a task once we've been interrupted. And if the average person gets 100 texts or emails per day and we allow that notification to buzz at us 110 times, that's 110 lost minutes per day.
Wow.
Just from that. And that's what time leaks are. It's not like you lost 110 minutes in a row. It was a minute here, a minute there from your brain refocusing, leaving whatever task you were doing to go look at your phone or your computer, and then get settled back into the task you had been interrupted doing. And so I have folks turn off their notifications, and I'm not saying to never check email or text again. It's just you need to do it when your brain is ready. So even if you check email every 10 minutes, that's still a lot better than being constantly interrupted throughout the day. So that's a recommendation that I make as far as emails go. And then you also mentioned boxes or files. If we're talking about physical papers, then I have my clients who have projects that are paper-related. I have them use hanging files in their desk area so that way they can reach over to the project files, bring it out when they're working on it, and put it back when they're done so that things don't get mixed up together. So the tools that people need will really depend on what their situation is. For folks who have to do a lot of social media, I recommend using TweetDeck or Hootsuite because you can gather all of your social media all in one place. And there are other platforms out there, but just to give you an example with Hootsuite, you can schedule all of your posts for LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and your other platforms all at one time instead of trying to go to 5 different places to make your posts. So there are various tools out there that can be used.
Okay, so I want to go, one of my favorite parts of your book is the back where you're talking about situational solutions. Mm-hmm. And I want to run by a few of these, sure. 2 or 3, and then we'll go into my part that I call an affirmative prayer, which you're going to do today, mm-hmm. And lead us in a visualization. But first, let's get some visualization on somebody saying this to you. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I am often late and miss appointments. Let's talk about that. I use that guy who missed his appointment mm-hmm. as an example, but what do you say to someone like that?
First, we go back to the planning. We look at what are you doing as soon as you find out that you have a meeting that you need to attend. And for quite a few people, they try to leave it in their brains that they have a meeting. And we already have way too much stuff up in our heads to try to squeeze that piece of information in there too. So that is a very common mistake. Another common mistake is that if they are using a digital calendar to do their scheduling, they put that meeting on their calendar, but they also set a reminder for the time of the meeting. Well, if your reminder goes off at the time the meeting's going to start, it's a little too late to make it over to the meeting. So what we start doing is, as soon as they're assigned their next meeting, it's written into their calendar, not just who they're meeting with, but the place, the time, how long it's going to take to get there. We build in time afterwards so that they can debrief and capture their notes and their thoughts from the meeting and schedule any other tasks that they need to do because of that meeting. And we set reminders for them. If they're digitally inclined, we set reminders for them. So 3 days before, they would get a reminder. They have this meeting and they need to prepare sample A, B, and C to walk into the meeting with. They get a reminder a day before the meeting. Remember, you need to leave at this time in order to make it to the meeting on time, because a lot of people don't build in that commute time.
Yeah.
And so they get all of these different reminders, so there's no possible way they can forget that they have a meeting. And we build in extra time before arrival. So let's say that it should take you 30 minutes to reach the meeting on time. Well, we back it out and we say you want to get there a little early so you can do some centering, and there might be some traffic. So let's go ahead and say 45 minutes to get there. And if you get there early, that's okay. You can just relax, or you can check email before you walk in, or you can just focus on centering. So we have all these different fail-safes built in so that there's no way they can possibly forget that they have a meeting and therefore be late.
Okay. I've got brainus interruptus and ideas overload, one of my favorites.
With the brainus interruptus, a common term that a lot of people hear is squirrel, because our brains just start shooting off on all these tangents because there are so many visual and auditory distractions that are out there. So brainless interruptions can happen externally when we have all of these visual stimulus out there and auditory stimulus. It could also happen when our brains are in overdrive, and so all these different ideas just pop into our head. We've got so much going on there. So I have my clients carry around their brainless interruptus deflector shield, and those are either a phone, if you're digitally inclined and you always have a device with you, or a small notepad if you're paper inclined. And what I have my clients do is every time their brain gets interrupted with some kind of thought, they capture that thought on their device or on their notepad. They get it out of the way so they can go back to the task that they were working on instead of going off on a tangent and getting away from what they're supposed to be focused on. And then at the end of the day, when they're doing their planning, choosing their top 3 for the next day, that's when they process their notes from the day. Okay, what ideas did I write down? Am I supposed to get that on my calendar? Should I put it in this project file over here? So they process their thoughts. That way their thoughts aren't lost.
I love it. And describe a project file.
A project file would be if it's primarily paper and you work with a specific client on one specific project, you would have a file just for that client's project. If your projects are 3D objects, let's say that you're an interior designer, and so you would have samples of color swatches and rug patterns and all of that good stuff, you could have a basket for your project file. And so everything related to that client's project is in there. But the whole point is, no matter what kind of container you're using, you're keeping everything related to that project in one place. So you're not looking in 3 or 4 places and saying, oh, where did I put that again? Did I leave it over here? Is it back in the corner? No, it's in that one project file spot.
I love that, and I'm proud of myself. I can pat myself on the back for this one because I have guest potentials for my radio show. So anytime I read an article, hear something on NPR, talk to a person in a meeting, if there is someone who might be an interesting guest, I put it in that file, and I don't follow through with it until I have some time to do it. So,
excellent.
Yeah,
yeah.
I love
so
that.
You know exactly where to go when you need to come up with an idea. It's contained right there. Way to go, Beverly.
Yay, thank you, Helene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now let's do some visualization here. We have about 6 minutes left of the show.
Okay.
So if you can lead us in a visualization, that would be wonderful.
Sure. For those folks out there who aren't familiar with positive visualization, this is where you picture in your mind how you want things to be. And it can be specific for a scenario that you're expecting to happen. So maybe you're expecting to have a conversation with your boss or a colleague or a family member. Or it can be a general situation. You picture how you want to feel like so you can use that as motivation. I'm going to use the latter right now, a general situation. So what I'd like everybody to do is, if you're in a place where you can safely close your eyes, so if you're listening to this while you're driving, please keep your eyes open. But if you can close your eyes, I want you to do so right now. And I want you to take a deep breath in and out. Picture yourself walking into your home after a day at work, or maybe you were out on the go all day. You go to your favorite place in your house. It might be your comfy sofa or the top step on the front porch, maybe even a chair in the backyard. And you're smiling because you have a full life, yet you're relaxed and in good health. You're reflecting on your day and celebrating that you completed your 3 most important tasks despite having unexpected situations arise. And you revel in the fact that you paused before giving an answer when someone asked you to commit more of your time. You only said yes to those commitments that will support your priorities. You're smiling because you can tell your time what to do. You are smiling because you've exercised the power to say no so that you can activate the power to say yes to what's most important in your life. And you're smiling because you have found peace. And this peace, this is the life you want to live. Beverly?
Oh, Helene, that's beautiful. And I love the way you congratulated us as we were in this visualization, because we were able to activate the power of yes in being efficient and organized by saying no to what didn't suit our priorities. Mm-hmm. That is so beautiful. That's how you activate the power of yes sometimes, by saying no.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
All right. So thank you so much. And now we want to make sure that our listeners know more about you and what you've done in the past and what you're doing. So give us your website and tell us anything you'd like to tell us about that.
Sure. My website is theinefficiencyassassin.com. If you go there, you'll find all of my contact information, email, phone, social media platforms. You can also check out my new book that's coming out that Beverly mentioned, and the webinars that go along with it. So there's a ton of information there, blog articles, all sorts of help for you, so that way you can activate the power of yes.
Thank you, Helene, and I sure appreciate your being on, and I just welcome the opportunity to hone in my own organizational skills, and your book has certainly helped me along the way. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Beverly.
Okay, and dear listener, Dave Savage, my husband, we've almost been married a year. We have written about memorial services and celebrations of life, and we are going to different parts of the United States, traveling in the recent future, especially in April. We'll be in Florida and in California. So we'll be in California. I'll be there the end of this month, and I'll be talking with a couple of groups there. And then we'll be in Florida the end of April, talking with some groups there and doing some workshops on our book, Heartfelt Memorial Services, Your Guide for Planning Meaningful Funerals, Celebrations of Life, and Times of Remembrance. And what we're doing is these workshops are on what Helene has been talking about, planning ahead, not being at the emergency situation where someone is dying in the immediate future or has already died. We're talking about planning ahead when we can luxuriate in the time that we have to make some plans that would make a big difference during the end-of-life situations. So if you'd like to join us, please let me know. And if you'd like to host a workshop, let me know about that as well. My number is 404-931-7333. And email is Beverly@BeverlyMolander, MOLANDER.net. Well, thanks for joining us, and you know what I'm going to say. Find lots of ways to activate the power of yes in your life. Yes, you can. I'm Beverly Molander.
Thank you for tuning in to Affirmative Prayer, Activating the Power of Yes, with Reverend Beverly Molander. May you continue to be receptive to all the blessings life has to offer, and all the blessings that you have to offer life. Just say yes. Join us each Monday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, for more ways to use affirmative prayer, activating the power of yes, on Unity Online Radio, the voice of an awakening world. Affirmative Prayer, Activating the Power of Yes, is sponsored by The Best Memorial Service, a planning guide with rituals and ceremonies to bring together family and friends. The book is co-authored by Beverly Molander and Dave Savage. For more information and resources, go to thebestmemorialservice.com.
Do you experience the peace and joy promised by A Course in Miracles? Or are you still struggling to truly live your beliefs from moment to moment? Let Reverend Jennifer Hadley help you focus on your intent to be the love, be the peace through practical application by walking your talk. Experience the healing live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central on A Course in Miracles, Living the Love, Walking the Talk, only on Unity Online Radio, the voice of an awakening world.
When we think of something priceless, we may envision a rare jewel or a masterpiece of art. In our minds, their value may be partially based on the fact that they're not easily found or duplicated. We tend to place greater worth in such things and may overlook the everyday treasures each one of us already possesses. Regardless of our individual tastes and perceptions, there is one thing we all value, a treasure we constantly seek: peace of mind. Ironically, peace isn't rare. It's an unlimited and ever-present gift that lives within each of us, waiting to be found. I can uncover my buried treasure today. Peace is priceless. Peace can begin with me.
To find a Unity Church near you, please visit our website at www.unity.org.
Blissful stillness, come to me. Blissful stillness, come.
Tens of thousands of listeners, like you, have been transformed through the ministry of Paulette Pipe and her program, Touching the Stillness, one of the longest-running programs on Unity Online Radio. Paulette's latest album of guided meditations, Blissful Stillness, is a new and different experience. The mystical quality of her beautiful voice will reverberate through a Zen-style meditation, a mudra meditation, which are yoga hand positions to deepen your practice, and guided meditations which we know and love. It features a new instrumental sound by Kelly Hunt with a bonus track by Kathy Zavada. Experience a blissful immersion into quiet and stillness by purchasing your own copy at shop.unityonline.org.
Blissful stillness, come.
The optimist sees the good in all things, builds upon the most hopeful and cheerful view of matters, and expects the best possible outcome. The pessimist, unwilling to look for the good, rarely finds it. Both optimism and pessimism are states of mind. They are attitudes, not events. The words we most often use reflect our strongly held thoughts and affect every area of our lives. If you're finding more frustration than fulfillment in your life, take a look at what you're thinking. Find something more positive to think, say, or do. Begin building a happier, more satisfying life for yourself today as you choose to look for and find the good in every person and circumstance. This law of life is brought to you by Unity.
To find a Unity Church near you, visit www.unity.org.